Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into this whole digital tug of war that's going on.
Yeah,
This privacy versus security thing.
yeah.
Specifically, we're going to be looking at the tension that's growing between, governments wanting to get into encrypted data and companies like Signal that are like, no, we're committed to keeping your conversations private.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about this is it's not just hypothetical anymore.
Right.
We're actually seeing this play out right now. And the stakes are, I mean, they couldn't be higher.
Yeah, no kidding. A perfect example of this is actually happening right now in Sweden,
Yeah.
where Signal is actually threatening to pull out of the country entirely
Oh, wow.
if the government there forces them to create encryption backdoors. And you know what? They've said they'd rather leave than compromise user privacy.
Wow.
It's pretty serious. It really reminds me of what happened with Apple and their iCloud encryption in the UK. So get ready, because we're going to break down exactly what's happening, why it matters to you, and what could happen.
Absolutely. And this is a really important discussion because the outcome could totally change how we communicate online and how much privacy we can expect.
Exactly. So, okay, let's unpack this. Signal, as some of you know, is a messaging app. It's famous for its really strong encryption.
Right. And they use end-to-end encryption, or what we call E2EE.
Right.
And what that means is that only the people who are actually communicating can read the messages, so not even Signal has the keys to unlock them.
Wow.
Yeah, so imagine sending a letter, but it's in a sealed envelope,
Right.
and only the person you sent it to can open it.
Gotcha. So nobody else can, like, steam it open or anything.
Totally private.
Okay, so Signal CEO, Meredith Whittaker,
Yes.
she's made it very clear
Oh, yeah.
that they're not backing down.
She was really forceful and basically said that Signal would rather just leave a market than compromise user privacy. She actually had a quote in the Swedish media saying, you are either offering a vulnerability that lets everyone in, or you are upholding strong, robust encryption and ensuring the right to privacy for everyone.
That is the powerful statement.
It is.
And it really gets to, like, the heart of the issue here, right?
Exactly.
It's like, if you weaken encryption, even if it seems like it's for a good reason, it makes it weaker for everybody.
That's exactly right. And Whitaker argues that it either works for everyone or it's broken for everyone.
Right.
And Signal's response is going to be the same.
Okay.
They'd rather just leave than comply with something that, would undermine their ability to offer truly private communication.
Okay, so what is it exactly about this proposed Swedish legislation that has Signal so worried?
Well, this legislation would require messaging apps to actually store user data for up to 2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
Wow.
And to give law enforcement access to it whenever they ask for it. And this could actually come into effect as soon as March 2026.
2 years of data. I mean, that just feels like such a massive invasion of privacy.
It's a lot.
I get the need to fight crime, but isn't there a risk that this type of access could be misused?
Oh, absolutely. And that's a valid concern.
Yeah.
I mean, governments often justify these types of measures by saying that they're necessary to combat serious crime and terrorism and,
Right.
child exploitation. They claim that this access to encrypted data is crucial for investigations.
That's a tough one, right?
It is.
It's like, on the one hand, yeah, I want to protect children, keep people safe. But on the other hand, weakening encryption, it just seems like it could open this Pandora's box
Yeah.
of security risks,
It's a really tough balancing act.
So what do you think? I mean, is there any way to reconcile these two things?
Well, and this isn't just happening in Sweden. Remember
Right.
what happened with the online safety bill in the UK?
Yeah, that forced Apple to disable,
Their advanced data protection feature
Yeah.
for iCloud users?
yeah, right. The UK thing definitely serves as a warning.
It does.
So what happened there? Like, fill me in.
Well, the UK government, they use similar justifications to what we're seeing in Sweden now,
Right.
arguing that law enforcement needed access to this data to, protect children.
Right.
And just like in Sweden, this move got a lot of pushback from privacy advocates.
Yeah, it seems like the core problem here is that creating a back door that is actually secure is pretty much impossible, right?
It is, and that's because end-to-end encryption is designed so that no one, not even the company, can decrypt these messages.
So there's no way to kind of build in a special key or something.
No, because if you try to create a backdoor, you immediately weaken the entire system.
So it's kind of like saying, I want a house with a super strong door, but I also want you to leave a spare key under the mat. just in case.
That's a great
I
analogy.
mean, if anybody knew about that key, then it wouldn't even matter how strong the door is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes the whole system less secure. And it's not just less secure for, for good purposes.
Right.
It's less secure for everybody.
Oh,
It's like you're creating a vulnerability that hackers or criminals or even other governments could exploit.
yeah, that defeats the whole purpose
Okay.
of having encryption.
It does.
So I'm curious, have other countries tried to do similar things?
Oh, yeah.
Is this like a global trend we're seeing?
Absolutely. We're seeing this debate play out all over the world.
Wow.
And the outcomes could totally reshape how the internet looks.
Okay, this is definitely getting more complex.
It is.
We'll be right back to explore how this debate is playing out globally and what it could mean for the future of all of our privacy. Welcome back. We were talking before the break about how this whole encryption debate is playing out all over the world.
Yeah, and the outcomes of these debates are really going to have a massive impact on how we use the internet going forward.
It's like we're at this crossroads
Yeah.
where we have to pick between these two very different paths.
Right.
Like one leads to more surveillance and control, and the other path champions this individual freedom and privacy.
It is. It's like a defining moment for the evolution of the internet. And the decisions that are being made right now, I mean, they're going to have a lasting impact on the digital world.
Totally. So are there alternatives?
Yeah.
Is there like a way to find some sort of balance between security and privacy?
Well, a lot of people are pushing for better cybersecurity measures
Okay.
instead of trying to break encryption.
So instead of trying to create backdoors, we just focus on like reinforcing the walls.
Exactly. So that could include investing in, stronger security systems
Right.
and improving how law enforcement tracks criminals online, but without weakening encryption and, just generally educating people about online safety and best practices.
That seems like a much more proactive approach, right?
It is.
It's like getting to the root cause of cybercrime instead of just reacting to it after it's already happened.
Right, because then the focus shifts from weakening encryption to empowering people and organizations to protect themselves.
What about more transparency and accountability in, how governments use our data?
That's a really crucial point.
Yeah.
If governments are going to be able to access encrypted data in any way, there have to be very clear guidelines and strong oversight
Right.
to prevent abuse.
Yeah, maybe we could establish some sort of like independent review boards
Yeah,
or require warrants
exactly.
to access encrypted data.
Those are great ideas because any access to personal data should be justified and it should be proportionate
Right.
and subject to judicial review.
We could also maybe look at what other countries are doing.
Yeah.
I mean, some have data protection laws that seem to balance both privacy and security pretty well.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, no need to reinvent the wheel, right?
Exactly. We can learn from what has worked or hasn't worked in other countries, and we can adapt those models.
I like that. I mean, ultimately, technology is a tool,
It is.
right?
Yeah.
And it can be used for good or evil. So we really get to decide how we want to use it and what kind of digital future we want to build.
I agree. The future isn't set in stone. It's shaped by the choices we make today.
So to kind of bring this back to our listeners, what are some of the key takeaways from today's conversation?
Well, first, this encryption debate, I mean, it's almost not going anywhere anytime soon.
Right.
The tension between privacy and security, it's going to continue playing out on a global scale.
It's a big one.
It is.
And second, it's so important that we all join this conversation and make our voices heard.
Absolutely.
We can't just sit back and let other people determine the future of our digital lives.
Right. We have to be mindful of the choices we make online, like the companies that we support,
Yeah.
the products we use, the data that we share. I mean, all of that affects our privacy and security.
It all adds up.
It does.
So to wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought-provoking question. What if, in the name of security, governments weaken encryption? What other freedoms or what other rights might be at risk? And what would a world without strong encryption even look like?
I mean, that is kind of a chilling thought, and it's definitely something we need to be very cautious about.
Yeah. We'll be back in a moment to explore some potential paths forward and talk about how we can actually shape a digital future that protects our privacy and our security. Welcome back to our deep dive, everyone. We've been talking about this whole encryption debate, and it's complicated stuff.
It is.
But we've covered a lot of ground looking at both sides and, trying to understand what could happen if encryption is actually weakened.
Yeah, and it really feels like we're at this crossroads, right?
It does.
We can choose to go down this path towards more surveillance, or we can fight for a future that really puts privacy and individual freedom first.
It feels like a really pivotal moment,
It is.
like in the evolution of the internet. And the decisions that are being made now, it feels like they're really going to have lasting impacts on the digital world.
Absolutely.
So where do we go from here?
Yeah.
What are some like alternative paths forward?
Well, one idea that's gaining a lot of traction is this focus on better cybersecurity.
Okay.
So instead of trying to break encryption itself,
Right.
right, the focus is on strengthening those existing protections.
So instead of building back doors,
Yeah.
we just make the walls stronger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that could look like, investing in more robust security systems,
Right.
improving how law enforcement investigates online crime, but without actually compromising encryption.
Right.
And just educating people about online safety.
Yeah, like best practices and things.
Exactly.
So it's more of a proactive approach.
It is.
It's like we're getting ahead of the problem.
Right. It's about empowering individuals and organizations to protect themselves rather
Yeah.
than, weakening the very tools that help keep us safe.
It's like we've been so focused on fighting the symptoms that we've forgotten about, the underlying disease.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And what about transparency and accountability when it comes to how governments are using our data?
That's such a crucial point. I mean, if there's going to be any kind of government access to encrypted data, there has to be really strong oversight, really clear rules
Yeah.
to prevent that from being abused.
Right. So maybe establishing some sort of independent review boards
Yeah.
or requiring warrants to access encrypted data.
Right. I mean, any access to personal data should be justified and it should be proportionate.
Right.
And it should be subject to judicial review.
And maybe we can look at what other countries are doing. I
Absolutely.
mean, some countries have like data protection laws that seem to do a good job of balancing privacy and security.
Yeah, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We
Right.
can learn from the successes and the failures of other countries and adapt those models to our own needs.
I like that ultimately technology is a tool, and it's up to us to decide how we want to use it.
That's right.
So what kind of digital future do we want?
Yeah, that's the question.
I mean, it's really inspiring to know that there are solutions out there,
Yeah,
that it's not just like, all doom and gloom.
absolutely.
Ultimately, it's important to remember that technology is just a tool, and we decide how we want to use it.
That's right.
So what kind of digital future are we trying to create here?
Yeah, good question.
As we wrap this up, I hope our listeners are feeling empowered because this isn't a battle that we're, destined to lose.
Absolutely not. We can demand better cybersecurity and advocate for transparency and accountability.
Right.
And we can make informed choices about the technologies that we're using. Every action makes a difference.
It does. This conversation has been, incredibly insightful.
It has.
It's clear this is a topic that, it hits close to home for a lot of us
Yeah.
because this is about our privacy, our security, and our freedom, really, in a world that's changing so rapidly.
It's been a really fascinating conversation.
It has.
And the future of the internet is really in our hands. And by having thoughtful conversations like this,
Yeah.
we can help shape a digital world that actually respects our values.
Well said. Thanks for joining us, everyone, for this deep dive.
Of course.
Remember, the choices we make today are going to determine what kind of digital world we leave behind.
That's right.
So let's choose wisely.